Welcome to another episode of Data Analytics Chat. I'm Ben Parker, data recruiter and podcast host, looking to share knowledge and insights for the listeners. Today, I'm excited to welcome Pablo Vega Behar, Director of Machine Learning Engineering at the Fitch Group. In this episode, we'll explore his career journey, how he got started, pivotal moments that shaped his career path, and look into current industry challenges. So, Pablo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Brilliant. Looking forward to hearing more. So let's kick off with your journey. And I guess what inspired you into the field?
So, what inspired me into the field, I got to see what data science was all about roughly 10 years ago. I was working as part of an R&D group in a completely different company, and because I was in an R&D group, we were tasked with finding out, how can data science be used in the construction industry. And I sort of had that vision that, oh, this was the future. And from the very beginning, I really liked the applications related to language. So back then it was all natural language processing, NLP, and I sort of saw the direction where it was headed. I will say a lot of it happened a lot faster than I thought initially it was going to. So I didn't think LLMs would be as powerful as they are now, just 10 years ago. But I part of it was kind of luck of the draw, and part of it was a bit of informed judgment where I really, really enjoyed the language part of it, and I kind of saw that it was the future. So that was my initial introduction.
And so was that more from the NLP side? Was that more learning from education or did you read about it? How did you get into that topic?
So the NLP side specifically, I got into data science and I had the background from doing grad studies. So I did a PhD at Georgia Tech, and because of all of my research, that gave me the opportunity to understand mostly time analysis and time series analysis, but then that helps you pick up a lot of the background that you need for data science. The transition to NLP was more my own curiosity and just taking time during nights and weekends to kind of explore it on my own and learn self-education while I still had a full-time job in the construction industry.
Okay, interesting. So was there a lot more like reading then from your point of view and learning? Because obviously it's a change, isn't it?
Yeah, it a lot of reading, and I like reading in general for learning. I also picked up a few self projects and like side projects back in the day. I used a few of the popular data science competition websites that are out there. Not sure if I'm allowed to name names here, um, but I also used a lot of those for education purposes.
Yeah, good. No, I think obviously does that project work does stand people in a good stead, doesn't it? Obviously, gives you the foundation to get into, I guess, the projects and corporate work.
I will say I also got lucky in a sense that the first company where I started my career in New York, because we were in an R&D group, they sort of gave us the flexibility to learn and experiment with a few things. So my career transition started while I was still in a job unrelated to the tech field.
Okay. And because you've been in obviously mixture of engineering and sort of financial services, do you think that working in the same industry has benefited your career then?
I think so. I would say I have learned, I consider myself as having worked in four different major industries, architecture, engineering, construction being the first one. I had a 1 year stint in healthcare services and insurance company in the US, a very large company in the US. Then after that, I went into sort of business consulting, and now I'm in financial services. And I have learned something different from each one of them. Some of the skills are transferable, some not necessarily directly transferable, but For me, I have been interested in leadership for a long time, and being able to interact with different people and having to learn out of necessity, really having to learn to speak sort of different corporate languages very quickly as I did those transitions has really been helpful in progressing into a leadership position.
Yeah, no, I just because obviously with industry, I think it is getting more. I mean, it does help you grow, doesn't it? It's understanding the business, and obviously, the reason I brought it up is obviously because they're working in a sort of different industries, but there's similarities, isn't it, with the regulated markets, that sort of thing. And I do see businesses are looking for that.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll mention is overall, in general, the machine learning world, the AI world, everything is moving so quickly from every point of view, the business use cases, but obviously the technical aspect of it. It seems like the big AI companies have big releases now every 2 weeks, and they're all trying to one up each other. And so having the skill set, and not just the skill set but also the willingness to keep up with those changes, it because it takes time and it takes effort, and we're all busy, we're working our 40 hours or 50 hours or however many hours a week you're working, and then on top of that finding time to stay up with the tech progress in our industry. It's hard, and I think being able to be exposed to different industries has definitely helped me develop that skill set.
Brilliant. And then obviously you touched on obviously you had a passion for leadership. How
Yep.
did you? Because I guess for the listeners, like there'll be people coming to that stage or looking to do that, but obviously you've got to give up your technical expertise, haven't you? You've got and then also learn the, I guess, the softest or the leadership side. Um, what? How did you progress? Like, was it more on the job training, or did you do training courses? How did you get the support there?
It was more so part of it, especially more recently, has been on the job training. If you go to my LinkedIn or you look at my resume, you'll see I did hop around a little bit over like a 3 year period between, let's say, 2019, 2022. And that was mostly chasing, and I don't think even chasing is the right word. It's just opportunities were presented to me and I went ahead and took them. Some were a little risky, and I don't necessarily recommend to everybody to, stick to the level of risk that you're comfortable with. And if you want more detail, I can talk about that. But I did a couple of moves that might have been potentially risky. They ended up working well, and that has helped me to progress into leadership positions. A part of it, like I said, was just changing companies and finding the right opportunity where somebody needed a specific skill set and they were willing to combine that with the opportunity to lead a team. And then I took it. I got an offer and I took it.
Okay,
And
brilliant.
a lot of it has been self motivated too. So even now I read. I try to read almost every night before going to bed, and I've been reading some management and leadership books recently because everybody can always improve. I always tell people LeBron James has probably been the best basketball player in the last 20 years in the entire world, and he still tries to improve his shooting and his game all the time. Right? So we can, if even the best of the best can improve, we can all continue to strive to improve.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think reading, obviously, if you can just take a little snippet and then apply it to your work, and it could obviously impact you massively, can't it? So, I guess, well, I mean, what's the current industry challenge that you feel businesses are facing today? Obviously, there's a lot happening in the field.
So I would say specifically in the world of AI, like I mentioned before, it's moving so quickly that seeing projects all the way through is something that I see many companies struggle with. At Fitch, I would say we're doing a lot better than some other I live in New York and I go to a lot of meetups. I stay pretty active in the AI and ML community. So I talk to a lot of people and we're all facing similar issues. Again, like I said, we're doing a little bit better, but seeing projects all the way through is something that I just see companies struggle with, and that comes mainly in two forms: either businesses themselves are struggling to understand where to find value in AI, and what are the good use cases that are really going to bring business value and a return on your time and money invested. And then the second one is, once you do start those projects, having the right governance in place to make sure that teams don't go off on tangents and everybody's focused on the goal and you can meet those business objectives. That's something that people are struggling with. And it's kind of like death by endless POC, where companies are just doing these POCs and they're not finding how to get them all the way into production and put them in users' hands. I definitely see. I would say that is the biggest challenge that businesses are facing with respect to AI and machine learning by far.
Yeah. We hear that. And is it, what do you think, just scaling AI solutions quick enough is sort of the key problem then?
I think a lot of people are trying to do too much at the same time,
Yeah.
because again, they see these big companies coming up with new releases, and the brand new state of the art model is now performing X% better than the previous one, and everybody's a little nervous and everybody just wants to keep up with everything. My recommendation is just ruthlessly prioritize. Don't try to do everything at once. Just be very critical. What is your company's core objective? And if you really want to use technology and AI to improve that core objective, find one or two, maybe three at most, goals that you want to accomplish over the next few months, and really just stick to those. And if it's not working, cut it off quickly, and move on to the next thing. Don't try to stay in a POC just because you've invested a lot of time already.
Yeah, I think it also is actually solve a problem, isn't it? Look, make sure you got something to solve, not try and find something to solve. Spoke to many leaders that are just people are just building for the sake of it and not really got like a key objective. Like, because then don't look, you want growth, you want to get an ROI out of this, or it's not cheap to build these models. So just make sure you align to what's your biggest key problem at the minute, and then create something that's going to solve that problem.
Yeah, it's the old, solution looking for a problem issue that all companies face. You see the cool new toy and the shiny new technology, and you're like, oh, I really want to use this. What problem can I solve with this? That's completely backwards. You should be looking for problems first, identifying the most important ones, and then trying to find that solution.
Yeah, completely agree. And then, so looking back then, well, obviously, because you progressed really quick and obviously worked for some great companies, or what key moments that shaped your career?
I would say the two. The first one being when our group was approached, when how I started my story, when I used to work in an R&D group, and we were approached to figure out how to use data science in the construction industry, because that's what opened up my eyes to what these technologies were capable of. And then the second one, in 2019, I I quit that job, and initially I wanted to look for another corporate uh, corporate job doing data science and machine learning, and I actually ended up finding clients to do freelance work, and I did that for almost a year and a half. Then COVID came around and it kind of changed my plans, but doing that year and a half of freelance work, that really, I would even say, forced me to develop a bunch of skills very, very, very quickly, because now I didn't have a steady paycheck. So I depended completely on myself to be able to make money. And so I had to learn a lot of stuff really quickly that has really helped in my career. I always tell people, my path is not necessarily easy to replicate. That's one of those risky situations that I've been talking about that I've taken in the past. I don't necessarily recommend that everybody does that, but if your situation and your personal, if your life circumstances allow for taking that kind of risk, I would definitely recommend that you do it. Not everybody has that ability. If you have kids and you have mouths to feed, maybe you can't take those types of risks. But those were definitely two key moments that shaped my career.
Yeah, brilliant. I like that. And also, I think it's more don't follow someone else's career. Like, create your own career. Like, I think you can easily follow people on LinkedIn or social media and just think they're ahead of you. Just everyone's at a different career status in their journey. Just go with your flow. Like, whatever you want to do, just aim for that and go for it. Don't just get sidetracked with a new shiny fear or topic that's on the market. Just keep aligned to your career goals, and then you'll get to where you want to get.
That's a really good point, and I'll mention one example that happened to me. Like I said, I've been focused on machine learning for language since, I would say, since about 2016, pretty heavily. I remember right around 2019, 2020, computer vision was all the rage, and everybody was looking at the vision models, and everybody was amazed at everything that those types of models could accomplish. And I kind of language became a little bit less popular for a while. Of course, it's been all the rage since 2022 and the large language model revolution. But even when it was less popular, I still continued to focus on language and NLP. So I agree with that. Pick something and try to stick to it and try to become an expert at it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then leading on to from that, then, so what skills or traits have helped you stand out in the industry?
That's a great question. I've always been a believer of try to take advantage of your strengths and be self-critical, recognize your weaknesses. I would say I'm not. I recognize from very very early on that I'm not the 99th percentile engineer. I'm a good engineer and I really enjoy engineering. I have a very numerical analytical mindset, but I noticed that I can speak to business stakeholders, I can speak to users, I can speak to engineers, and I'm comfortable speaking with all those varieties of profiles. Most importantly, I can translate between them. And so I think that's when I realized it was probably better for me to go into more of a management slash leadership role rather than try to just become the engineering expert, because that was my particular skill set. And it's really helped me stand out. I think being able to talk to non-technical folks, understand their problems, and then coming back to my technical folks, my great engineers that I have on my team, and telling them, hey, I think these are the problems and this still what the main issues are, and create a plan around how to solve them so that those really good engineers can then practice their expertise and solve problems for their users.
But I love that. I love the because I think it's a good skill set to have is being self aware of actually what skills you're actually good at. Because I think you can easily get carried away day to day work, and then I mean, what's your actual passion like? What do you like doing in your day to day job? Because you obviously with each job you have, there's all different components to your day job, and it's just I guess drilling down on what's the actual bit of your core strength, because then you're going to be more passionate about succeeding, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So obviously we've sort of touched base on obviously the market's moving quick, a lot of changes. So how as a leader, how are you sort of staying relevant with the rapid changes in data and AI?
Also a good question. I stay pretty active in the community. I happen to I guess I'm lucky in a sense that I live in New York and there's a huge AI community in New York now. So there are events all the time, all the way from small startups and VC funds trying to find the next big startup to invest in, all the way to big corporate events, dinners, meetups. And I try to find the time, obviously balance, you can't spend too much time on that, but I do try to find time to attend some of those events and talk to people and see what everybody's working on. And I rely a lot on my team. At Fitch, we have a team. It's about 20 people total. I work in the emerging technology team at Fitch. And like I said, we have really, really good engineers. It's good to have kind of nerdy folks around you. And I have a lot of them because they like to stay on top of the latest and greatest. And then I'm able to also keep up with the all of the trends and everything that's happening in the industry, in part thanks to them, because they bring a lot of those things to me. And I I do try to carve out a little bit of time to still dive into some of the technical topics. So, I'll look at code bases, I'll do some PR reviews every now and then, so that I still know what people are doing and what people are working on. But it takes time. It really does take time.
Yeah. And no, I obviously like that you put trust in your team because obviously that's what you need to do, isn't it? It's a team game. Like everyone needs to be pulling their socks up, getting involved, and obviously, like I said, you don't need to be like the techno experts. They don't need to be an expert in leadership, so they you can lead on them for the knowledge, and then they can lead on to you for the direction and guidance, can't they?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. So looking throughout your career, have you ever faced a major like career setback? And I guess what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so a few years ago, and actually twice, I've had two instances of this. I had ideas for a new product, and I happened to find in both instances, these were different products. I happened to find people who shared that idea, and they had the skill set to help me build sort of a startup product. In both instances, unfortunately, we failed to get an investment. In one of the products, we got some initial users, but it never grew. It was a very small user base, and we were having a hard time, uh, finding more. Now, was it a failure? Yes. I mean, it was a failure because we didn't stick to those companies. Those companies don't exist anymore. But there's a lot of stuff that I learned, and also going back to the I guess, story that I mentioned about when I was doing my freelancing, that kind of environment, it just forces you to learn things. And a lot of the techniques and tactics that I learned trying to do those projects, I still use today. And I'll give you one example. I don't have a sales background, and I also don't have formal training on sales. When you're a startup founder, you kind of have to learn how to sell to people. So I read a few books, I listened to some podcasts and experts, and now I don't have a sales job within Fitch, but I still have to sell my team to stakeholders, and I still have to sell the work that we do to other stakeholders, and everybody's busy. It's, internal sales or external sales, it's all the same thing. You have a people with a short attention span, and you need to very, very quickly show them what's your value proposition and how you can help them. And I do that now on almost on a weekly basis, even though, like I said, I don't have any formal sales training. So making sure that everybody's going to have setbacks at some point. I don't think I've ever met anybody who would tell you I've had a perfect career and it's gone exactly the way I planned it from day one.
Yeah, I agree. Or they're lying.
Making sure that you learn from it. There's different ways of taking things, right? Some people see failure and it demotivates them, and some people see failure and they say, you know what, I'm going to use this as an example, and I'm going to show them.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly it's the having the right mindset, isn't it? I mean, failures are obviously it sounds like a horrible word, doesn't it? Like it's end day, it's you're learning, you're progressing. It's as long as you grow from it and take whatever challenge you faced or whatever you've learned, and then just use it for future because it's going to benefit you anyway. It's just you're going to grow from it. It's just that's what just happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So what career advice would you give someone starting in the industry today?
I would say if, and this is actually a good question, and a few people ask me this, and what I tell everybody is kind of the same that I've been saying throughout this podcast is, pick an area where you want to focus and try to stick to that area, because everything is moving so quickly that if you bounce around between topics, or even worse, you try to become an expert at everything, it's not going to happen. So really pick an area and try to move quickly, because and look, I'll be honest, it's a tough industry. I'm glad that I'm already in the position I'm in, and not trying to break into it right now, because the rate of technological progress, if you're coming in as a beginner today, it's tough. So it's doable. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, because it's also an incredible industry and it's very rewarding, and we get to build cool things every day. But the main piece of advice is really find the one thing that you think you can become good at, and then stick with it.
So with that, how do you find what you're good at? Do you think it's just maybe taking different jobs, or how would you go about that? For say, like if a junior was looking like a graduate was looking to get into the field, how would you sort of advise them?
I would say don't be afraid to seek feedback. I'm a big fan of feedback, and I'm a big fan of telling people, look, I don't take things personally, so please, be upfront and frank with me. And I've had some very good, I would say, mentors along the way. It's very important for people, especially when you're brand new, to try to seek that out. Seek people who are not afraid to give you honest feedback, because everybody is not super self-aware.
Yeah,
Um, and even for people who are, we all have blind spots. I will say this type of industry and this type of role tends to attract people that might be a little bit more introverted, or a little bit more shy. But try to overcome that. I'm very introverted. I can talk to people, but I'm introverted in the sense that, once I'm finished working and I'm at home, I like to have my quiet time. I like to, read my books, do my stuff. But even if you are introverted or you're shy, you know, try to be vulnerable, and try to really, really be genuine in finding feedback, and don't take it personally. Take it as an opportunity to improve. I would say that is the best advice I can give.
yeah, no, that's great advice. Brilliant. And then to end on a positive, is there a particular achievement you're most proud of in your career to date?
I would say it's not a single achievement, but being able to transition from, after already having spent several years in a different industry and not doing a job that was, you know, directly related to software and data science, being able to make that transition and then quickly move up in this tech industry, which again, it's tough. It's a competitive industry. A lot of people want to get into it. I would say that's the one thing that I'm particularly proud of. But I'll add this, I don't think I'm done. I really want to make a difference in this industry, and really help shape either a company or an entire industry vertical. I'm still going, still see myself as not having achieved it.
No, I love that. Well, I don't think you can achieve it. Well, I think you just every day you've got to keep learning, haven't you? Every day is progression. Like it's always like you touched on earlier. Like you can always improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I said, hey, LeBron James is in his 40s and he's still practicing that jump shot.
So this obviously it's all about yourself, isn't it? If you want to improve, you can just keep going. You got there's always something to learn. There's always something to develop. And yeah, brilliant. Cool, Pablo. Well, really appreciate your insight, and you shared some great information and knowledge there for the listeners. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben. This was very enjoyable, and hopefully people get something out of this. And if people find me on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out.